Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege of Parshas Tisa. And the Torah continues on the journey of the Mishkan, this incredible meeting place between heaven and earth. V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'socham, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to us in Parshas Truma, build for me a Mishkan, build for me this home and I will dwell within your midst. Although the Shekhinah doesn't need a home, right? The Rebbe Shalom doesn't need a physical domicile, but yet the Mishkan gave us the opportunity to have a physical place. We are physical beings. And as physical, corporeal beings, material beings, it helps us to have a physical address with which to connect with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And so Parshas Tisa, the Torah continues to go through some of the details. And one of the fascinating details is contained in Perek Lamed Pasuk Chaf Beis, chapter 30, verse 22. Hashem says to Moshe, saying, V'ata kach lecha b'samim rosh. Kadosh Baruch Hu instructs Moshe Rabbeinu to go out and take a variety of different herbs and to make it into what becomes va'asisa osa shemen mishchas kodesh, anointing oil. Anointing oil. And what do you do with anointing oil? You have to anoint you have like the shmear to anoint the actual Mishkan itself, the ark, shulchan ves kol kelav, the table, all of the utensils, hamenorah ves kol keleh, ves mizbach hakitoras. So essentially, you anoint all of the utensils of the Mishkan, and including the Mishkan structure itself with this anointing oil. Ves mizbach ha'olah, ves kol kelav, everything. The kidashta osam, you shall sanctify or consecrate them. V'hayu kodesh kadoshim, and ultimately they'll become consecrated. So there's a lot of discussion in general in terms of why do these items need consecrating oil or anointing oil? After all, again, isn't the Mishkan holy? Isn't the Mizbeach, the altar, the menorah, the shulchan, all the Aron, they're all inherently holy. So of course, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to convey to us is the creation or fabrication of things by themselves does not create holiness. There's an action, there's dynamic activity. The act of anointing, of creating oil and anointing something with oil, by definition, is what unlocks the Kedusha. Oil itself, which has the ability to create light. Oil itself, which has the ability to create shine. So represents dynamic activity that is needed in order to unlock the inherent Kedusha, the inherent holiness, which exists within everything in this world. But it's fascinating to note that the anointing oil has a special relevance for us now. Because we know this Shabbos, there's no such thing as an ordinary Shabbos, but this Shabbos finds itself nestled in the middle of the Yom Tov of Purim. And there's an incredible Gemara in Meseches Chulin. In Chulin and in Megillah, but I'll read to you from Chulin. The Gemara Meseches Chulin, Daf Kuf Lamed Tesem Leves 139b, says as follows. The Gemara says, Esther min HaTorah minayin. From where do we know a biblical reference to Esther? So we know again, Emir Hashem tonight, Purim tomorrow morning, Emir will have discussed to read the Megillah, and Esther, the heroine of the story, the partner of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one of the architects of our incredible salvation of our people. So the Gemara says, where do we find the scriptural allusion to Esther? As much as we know that, of course, the story of Esther is not contained in the Torah, but everything is contained in the Torah. So do we find somewhere some type of allusion, some type of metaphorical foreshadow to Esther? To which the Gemara says, yes, va'anochi hastir astir. The Torah says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, actually by the tochacha, speaking by the series of curses, I will hide my face. So Esther, va'anochi hastir, I'll hide my face. Remember, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not mentioned in the Megillah. Although the Rebbe Shalom is the great choreographer, the one who's pulling all of the strings, but his presence is not necessarily acutely felt or known as we go through the entire Megillah story. So the Gemara says, where do you want to find the biblical reference to Esther? Esther, Seser, means hidden, secretive. So we see the entire story of Esther as a HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrating events, but behind the scenes, cloaked by normalcy, cloaked by the natural order of things. That's the reference to Esther. And then the Gemara goes on. Mordechai min HaTorah minayin. From where do we find a biblical allusion, a scriptural allusion to Mordechai? Incredible. The Gemara says, D'chsev mar deror. Incredible. The Gemara quotes this week's parasha. The first two ingredients of the anointing oil. V'ata kach lecha b'samim rosh mar deror. Some type of myrrh. Mar deror. So what does that have to do with Mordechai? And the Gemara says, u'metargaminon, and in Aramaic. In fact, if you look at Onkelos translates mar deror as Meira Dachya. Meira Dachya, you put those words together, Meira Dachya, what do you get? Mordechai. And from here is the scriptural allusion to Mordechai. So first of all, just how incredible is it? How overwhelming is it? That again, Parshas Tisa, the shemen hamishcha, the anointing oil, mar duror, the first ingredient, and that's the scriptural allusion to Mordechai. Mar duror, in Aramaic, meredachia, put it together, Mordechai. Incredible, just overwhelming by itself. The question is, what does it mean? In other words, when the Gemara goes through Esther and says, the scriptural allusion to Esther is, Hanochi astir espanai, I will hide my face, I understand that connection to Esther, because Esther, the entire story of Esther is one that is hidden, right? Everything. We spoke about this in an earlier share this week. Esther's identity itself. Who is she? Is her name Esther? Is her name Hadassah? Was she the wife of Mordechai, the surrogate daughter of Mordechai? Who was she? What was she? What's her background? These are all things that are shrouded in so much ambiguity and almost like secrecy. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Megillah. So I understand that connection. But what's the connection between Mordechai and Mar Duror? I understand the words fit together. I understand Mar Duror, which is this type of myrrh used for the anointing oil. The Aramaic, onkelos, meradachia together is Mordechai. But aside from just like a linguistic symmetry, aside from just again, it's the same letters, I got it. What's the connection between Mordechai and Mar Duror? And perhaps the answer is as follows. One of the most incredible things about the Megillah is, and Rabbi Soloveitchik writes about this, and the Sfarim bring this down as well, that the Megillah is a story without a Navi, right? Generally, throughout Tanakh, we go through our stories, and when there's a Shaila, when there's a question, Klal Yisrael goes to the Navi, he asks the Navi, what does the HaKadosh Baruch Hu want? And the entire story of the Megillah is there is no Navi. There is no Navi. There is no one to tell us what to do or how to do it. In fact, even in what I think is like one of the most pivotal moments of the Megillah, when Mordechai says to Esther, you need to go to the king to supplicate on behalf of the Jewish people. And Esther says no. And then Mordechai says back to her, listen, if you choose not to act, salvation will come from somewhere else. Hashem gives us the opportunity to partner with him, but he doesn't need us. So if you don't act, salvation will come from somewhere else. But then he says, maybe you came to the monarchy for this moment. In other words, Mordechai is saying, listen, Esther, I don't know why you became queen. I don't know what this whole thing is. But maybe you became queen to be able to affect change and bring about salvation in this very moment. But even Mordechai can't be resolute. He can't say, Esther, it's so clear. Baruch Hashemesh Batzarayim, is it as clear as the midday sun that you have become queen, only to say that. He can't say it. Why can't he say it? Because there's no prophecy. Because at the end of the day, Mordechai himself lacks a certain clarity about what's going on, how things are supposed to unfold, and in reality, what exactly HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of him, of Esther, in this current moment. If you fast forward to the end of the Megillah, so it's interesting, the Megillah ends off, right? Haman is hanged, Baruch Hashem, Jewish people are saved, and the pasuk says, Mordechai ratzui l'rov echav. Mordechai was beloved by the majority of his brethren. And all the Mefarshim asked the civil question, the majority of his brethren? Mordechai was also the architect of salvation, right? Mordechai was also the guy who partnered with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Esther Malka to bring about salvation. So what do you mean? Mordechai was only beloved? He had 51% approval rating, which, by the way, in general, in leadership, 51% approval rating is great, right? But you would think, at least in the immediate aftermath of the story, that he would have, skyrocketing popularity. What's the pshat? And the Gemara Masechus Megillah brings down that after the Purim story was over, Mordechai joined the court of the king. He went into politics. Here he got a political position with the king, and his fellow Rabbanim were angry at him because they felt that he should have come back to the Beis Medrash. He was a member of the Sanhedrin. He should have went to the Beis Medrash. Okay, you did what you had to do for the king. You did what you have to do to save the Jewish people, and now back to the Beis Medrash. And Mordechai really said essentially, I think my role is here. I think my place is here. We see that we're dealing with an unpredictable, despotic monarch. Who knows ma yavo yom, what tomorrow's going to bring. I think I need to stay in the palace. I need to stay in the confines, within government, so that if something happens, I'm there to help. And his fellow Rabbanim were very upset about him. We're very upset with him. And that the Gemara says is, Mordechai Ratzei l'rov echav. The people who disliked Mordechai were not even necessarily the common people. It was the Rabbanim, because they felt he was doing the wrong thing. And you think to yourself, was Mordechai right or was Mordechai wrong? And the answer is, we don't know. Should Mordechai have gone back to the Beis Medrash and assumed his role as part of rabbinic communal leadership? Or should he have stayed in the political echelon and stayed with the king? What was the right decision? Who knows? The Megillah doesn't tell us. And Mordechai probably never knew for sure until after 120. He probably asked Kadosh Baruch Hu, did I make the right choice? Kadosh Baruch Hu told him. But at the end of the day, he didn't know. And so much of the Megillah is this same idea of, in the absence of Nevuah, in the absence of a prophet, recognizing that you got to make your own decisions. And you have to try to figure things out on your own. And as beautiful and as wonderful as it would be to have a Navi to tell me what to do, or to have the divine whisper in my ear telling me, directing me what to do, or to be born with a little post-it note on my forehead that tells me what I'm supposed to accomplish, that's not the way life works. You got to figure it out. And perhaps that's the pshat. The Gemara says, what's the remes to Mordechai? What's the scriptural allusion? Mar durar. So in Aramaic, mer dachya, but look at the Hebrew. Mar means bitter. Durar means freedom. Who's Mordechai? Mordechai is the individual, one of the first times in Tanakh where we see someone who has to make decisions on his own. You know, it's interesting if you contrast, two leaders, Moshe Rabbeinu and Mordechai. Moshe, everything was scripted. Moshe Rabbeinu, Kadosh Baruch Hu told him what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Now, of course, there were those times where Moshe Rabbeinu advocated on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't tell him to. But in general, there's a script, and Moshe Rabbeinu is obligated to stick to it. In fact, when Moshe Rabbeinu breaks with the script, he goes ahead and he hits the rock. Instead of speaking to the rock, he's punished. Mordechai, there's no script. It's durar. He has freedom. He's got to figure out what to do and how to do it. And there's no Navi, and there's no Ruach HaKodesh, and there's no prophecy, and there's nothing. And he just has to figure it out. And at times, that freedom of decision, and at times that ability to decide for yourself is bitter. You know why? Because a lot of times, I end up making the wrong decision. A lot of times I just end up going in the wrong directions. But such is the nature of life. Mordechai min haTorah minayin. From where do we see? What scriptural allusion to Mordechai? Mar deror. Mordechai was the first person to model for us about the ability to have to make decisions on your own. And sometimes the bitterness that comes along with that when you make the wrong ones. But such is the nature of life. Such is the nature of the human condition, and such is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of us. The Ribbon Shalom wants us to be decisive. He wants us to have the freedom to decide. And he also gives us the allowance and the ability to choose wrongly. It happens. Sometimes the durar, sometimes the freedom is mar, it's bitter, when you back yourself into a corner because of bad decisions. But Chevra, the Musar is so profound. How often in life does it happen that we are faced with opportunities and we're so scared about making the wrong decision that we make no decision? And no decision is also a decision. Inaction is also a decision. And the entire story of Purim is a story about incredible holy people who had absolutely no direction and had to figure things out by themselves, with complete emunah, complete bitachon, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had their back, and that somehow, if they tried their best, the Ribbon Shalom would help them cross the finish line. And that's exactly what happened. Esther had no idea what to do. She had to make a decision. And so she went with it. Mar deror, Mordechai, did not know what to do. But again, he advises Esther to the best of his ability. We just got to make decisions, got to move ourselves forward. And at the end, when the story's over and everyone lived happily ever after, and Mordechai, you don't think Mordechai wanted to go back to the base medrash? Who doesn't want to go back to the base medrash? But he understood that maybe that's not my place. Right decision, wrong decision, who knows? But it was a decision that he had to make. Life is filled with decisions. And all too often we are so scared of making the wrong ones that either we make just always safe decisions and underperform, or we don't decide, and this leads us to a life of inaction. Sometimes freedom to make decisions is bitter, but that is our sacred mandate. That is the message of the Megillah. Make your decisions, and if you make mistakes, you'll choose better next time. And if you succeed, then you know exactly the pattern of decision-making you need to engage in next time as well. But life is about venturing out into the unknown. Life is about making decisions. Life is about taking risks. And yes, sometimes it backfires. And sometimes it goes wrong. Because sometimes durar, freedom to decide who you want to be and what you want to be, could be mar. It could be better. But sometimes it could also be masak. Sometimes it could be sweet. That's the avot of Purim. That's the message of part of the message of the Megillah. And incredible how this message coincides with Parshas Tisa. The first two ingredients in the Shemen HaMishcha, Mar Derar. The Ribono Shel Olam wants us to feel the freedom to make life decisions. Push yourself forward. Make decisions. Don't be passive in life. And don't be afraid of making the wrong decisions, because guess what? You will. We all do. And when you decide wrongly one time, Emir Hashem, you're just empowered to make better decisions next time. The freedom to choose is the greatest gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. Sometimes it results in a little bit of bitterness, but if we exercise that skill and we fine-tune that skill, it can pave the way for a life of sweetness. Wishing everyone a freilich and Purim and a good Shabbos.